There has never been a worse market for real estate in India, and yet the Trump Organization chose to launch two of its most prestigious luxury projects in India in the midst of one of the worst slowdowns in real estate in the country. I have with me the CEO and the head of the Trump Organization, Donald Trump Jr., and his partners in India, Kalpesh Mehta, Mr. Patodia, and Mr. Vinod Dugar from the RDB Group. Mr. Trump, let me start with you. Why is it that the Trump Organization chose to launch two of these projects, luxury projects, right in the middle of this slowdown at a time when we've been hit by demonetization, GST? You know, the inventory is one of the highest in the country right now. You have also seen that the Mumbai project is still to be sold fully. So how did you launch it in the middle of this slowdown?
Well, listen, real estate by its nature has a long cycle, right? You start a project, you can't just necessarily put things on hold for years to watch for things to improve. Now, what we were able to do to be able to launch these projects is come up with incredible projects, great locations, unique features. Here in Kolkata, the first residential building with floor-to-ceiling glass, unobstructed views overlooking parks. So you can still differentiate yourself. Even in a bad market, in a difficult market, you can still make something that's better. And our sales have proven that we've been able to do that successfully. So by differentiating ourselves, by being unique, by being able to truly build a better product, a true ultra-luxury product, you are able to pick off what's left of the market. Now, that may be a smaller world, but there are still people looking, there are still people buying. We're just able to get more of them.
Those were really interesting ads that came out, the full page ads, and also the fact that they said that the buyers are going to be meeting you personally. Is that something that is unusual, or do you do this in any launches?
Not at all unusual. Frankly, when I saw the articles coming out about that in the negative sense, I said I'd be the first real estate developer in the history of real estate to not meet with their buyers. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, for us as a brand, you have to get to know your buyers. These are people that in many cases follow us around from project to project, investing in various things that we've done in America and around the world. To not meet with them would frankly be unheard of. I think even within India, as we've launched other projects, I've been coming here doing the exact same thing for years, and certainly well before politics. So I don't know how anything has actually changed other than the narrative, which seems to be conveniently used to manipulate.
Do you personally meet every flat owner that
No, I won't meet everyone, but you show up if they do a party for the buyers. If you do, yesterday we had an incredible party here last night. There were buyers and there were 500 other people from around and from the real estate community and people who are big in the town, and it would be a very natural thing that we've probably done for just about every project we have ever launched in the 40-year history of our company.
Let me ask you a few things about you being the president's son.
Sure.
What is it that is the most awe-inspiring feature of being the president's son?
Well, listen, it's incredible to be a fly on the wall watching history made, right? To be able to have participated in the campaign, to be a part of, perhaps the greatest political upset in history was, amazing. And to be able to see someone truly making a difference. I mean, we're so used to in America, our politicians, they talk really well. They say a lot. They don't actually do anything, but they say a lot. And so to see someone who's in there making a difference, moving a needle, whether it's historic tax reform, to watch that as an American is truly inspiring.
You run the Trump Organization siloed from the presidency, at least that's what you've created, those trusts, and there's a self-imposed embargo. Yet there's still chatter about the president running, Mr. Trump running it by remote. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, it's ridiculous, candidly. When you look at the gravity of the situation around the world and everything that he has to deal with on a daily basis, the notion that we would sit there and talk to him about sales in a project and pick his brain for that. I'd love to be able to do it, but the notion that we would even think about doing that is frankly ridiculous.
Do you still consult him?
I wouldn't, no. He's got too much on his plate. Unfortunately, I barely get to see him these days, so we're certainly not talking about business when we do.
How has it changed his life as a president since before the campaign and as he was running the Trump Organization before that?
I mean, you probably see it almost as well as I do at this point. It's obviously very different, right? It's a different set of rules. It's a different set of circumstances. It's obviously you're dealing with people's lives. It's not just business where a deal, it's money, that's fine and good, but I mean, what he's doing now is changing the world. And so, I imagine the gravity of that certainly weighs on him.
How's the Trump organization been run differently from what it used to be earlier, for instance? Now with you, Eric and you in charge, is it being run any differently and from earlier?
No, I think it's a good question. It's very different. Obviously, we've limited what we can do. I spent 10 years, for example, in India building the relationships and the friendships really that we have here. We've said we can't do new international deals. That's very different. I mean, that's a big part of what I did. I spent a decade nurturing relationships, building that, and now to say, hey, we're not going to do that. So we're much more in a management mode. We're going to maintain the existing assets that we have, but that's a big hit. People don't talk about sort of the opportunity cost of what that is, the sacrifice that is to not do new deals and continue the business that way. So our job is really now more to maintain those assets. We can do some stuff within the U.S., but if I have a meeting with someone who got a speeding ticket at 16, it's on the front page of the Washington Post because there's sort of a natural proclivity to try to dig and try to hit whenever they possibly can, as you've seen. So it is very different today than it would have been 2 years ago.
And what's the role of the trusts really?
The role of the trust is just to keep, again, separation between church and state.
Mm-hmm. If you look at the business itself in the country, one of the biggest hits that it took was the derailment because of the demonetization. How did you see it from outside, and what do you make of the demonetization move specifically?
Well, I'm not going to get into macroeconomic policy right now, but I think, in the end, a lot of the rules that were put into place were, frankly, for me as an outsider looking in, a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. The way things were done, both, from a government level as well as even from, a developer standpoint, didn't lend a lot of confidence to the end consumer, and certainly as an investor coming in from outside of India, it sort of left a lot of ambiguity. I think what we've done now, and while it may have created some difficulty in the short term, I think in the end, in the long term, it's going to create a level of transparency that's going to create confidence that frankly needs and is needed to let people come into the country with that kind of confidence, to be able to let people say, hey, I want to invest in this. I want to buy into real estate that perhaps was looked at a little differently before that transparency was enacted.
What do you consider as your biggest strength?
My biggest strength?
Yeah.
My boyish good looks and charm. No, I don't know. I think it depends on the situation. So
no. So I was coming to a point where essentially you built a profile for yourself as a political figure as well. You're a business figure. You're a political figure. You're a social media figure. Where is this headed? Are you headed towards possibly bidding for the presidency at some point in time?
No, I mean, again, I never rule anything out, because then you rule something out, you change your mind 20 years later and they say you're a liar. So it's difficult to do that. I mean, obviously, I'm not a political figure, though I am vocal because I believe in a lot of the stuff. So I will use that. I will utilize my platform, to hit back. For example, yesterday,
yeah.
I was speaking, I did an interview on Indian television, and they asked, what differentiates India in your mind relative to some of the rest of the world? And so I gave sort of a from the heart answer. I really meant it because I've been here for a long time. I'm not I came to India last month and now I'm here to take advantage. I've been doing this for over a decade. I was a believer in the Indian markets, talking about this thing long before others were. So I gave this sort of from the heart response saying, what's amazing about the country and the culture is really the spirit of the people, how even some of the most destitute often have such a smile on their face. There's a joy of life here that I haven't seen in other parts of the world. So I give this answer that really was meant to be genuinely from the heart, from actual experience, not just theory, talking about it, not just pandering, but from what I've seen. And the Washington Post writes an article saying, Donald Trump Jr. likes poor people because they smile. It's just not genuine. It's just not honest. But I have a platform that I can use to fight back, and whether people like it or not, I guess I perhaps have some of the genetic proclivity to fight back that my father does and will, because I see so much of that dishonesty on a daily basis, and it's really sickening.